Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Apollo's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and Happy New Year! We're in the year 2025 now, and it's been an incredible year in regards to the UFO phenomenon. We've had a lot going on in regards to how the government is handling disclosure of the UFO UAP phenomena. And, a lot of interesting events happened this past year. If we go over it, the Miami aliens event, which was definitely really something. What else happened this year? A lot of whistleblowers came out. We had the UFO UAP congressional hearings, which I was a part of. And this documentary that I helped work on, Battle for Disclosure, came out in 2025 and was the hardest hitting documentary of the year. So if you haven't checked that out yet, make sure you do. That's available on Amazon Prime. Battle for Disclosure. Make sure you check it out. And what else happened this year? Oh yeah, and of course, this past month we had the New Jersey alien. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the Miami aliens. The New Jersey drone event. And what is most interesting about the New Jersey drone event is not really the drones themselves, but the plasmic orbs that the drones seem to be chasing. So I'm going to be covering the topic of plasma today, and I really have been excited to do a show on this topic for a long time because plasma is something I've been kind of obsessed with for a while now. Because actually, one of my craziest UFO experiences was actually involving plasma. I actually personally experienced a neon green ball of plasma come to me in the desert one time. And, it was a really amazing sight to see. It was actually like this neon green ball of light. I was standing out in the middle of the desert in Joshua Tree, California, and this ball of plasma, a plasmoid as they call it, came down from the sky, and it just it started shooting down, and then it just kind of floated. Like, I'm looking at myself in here right now to show you. Okay, so it shoots down like this, right? And then it just is almost like the second I really noticed it, it started kind of floating down, and then it stopped completely eye level with me. Like, it noticed that I saw it, and it stopped eye level with me, and it just kind of hung there for like a fraction of a second, and then it shot forward and disappeared. And that was a really amazing experience. And what I'm trying to explain is it wasn't even like nighttime. It was kind of getting close to nighttime, but it was basically broad daylight. And that was about 10 years ago, and believe it or not, it was actually kind of before the event Contact in the Desert, which is one of the biggest UFO events in the world. It kind of happened a little before that event. I was out there for the event, but it hadn't started yet, and I was kind of nearby where the event took place. And that area in general, in Joshua Tree, California, has a lot of sightings of plasmoids, of this phenomena. So this is just definitely and I'm going to get into why that is a little later. Basically plasma is something that is kind of cited in a lot of these electromagnetic type areas that have a lot of, fault lines, over major fault lines, over areas that have a lot of granite, because it kind of gives it an environment to survive in. So I'm going to be really delving into that topic today. And I want to thank my friend Helena Resner for introducing me to this book, who is actually by my friend who Helena introduced me to, Andrew Collins. He wrote this book called LightQuest, and I'm going to be reading some passages from this book today. I've actually been following Andrew Collins' work for a while. I think maybe like 15 years or so, maybe more. I've read quite a few books by him, but I never got around to this one. And Helena got this book for me and said, "Hey, you really need to check this out. I know your story. I know what you're into." And I just got around to reading it this past week here. And, I kind of knew a little bit about plasma before, but this really kind of lays out in detail a lot of aspects of plasma. What's also interesting about it is not only does it kind of get into the science of plasma, but the main aspect of it is how it gets into basically these UFO reports of it all around the world, and how it connects to the UFO phenomena, and why understanding what plasma is so important. So like I think a lot of people, and why I kind of titled this show "It's Not What You Think It is because a lot of people think that plasma is just ball lightning and they just write it off as that. And well, ball lightning is actually, it is technically plasma, but there's so much more to plasma. And when you see plasma, it's not just ball lightning. There's so much more to it. And it gets really deep down the rabbit hole, and it's definitely very fascinating. So before I kind of get into that all today, I want to share a video of I just wanted to start off with a video of plasma in case maybe you don't know what I'm talking about, you haven't seen it, you haven't been following the whole Jersey thing. You know what? I'm just going to show you both the videos now, and maybe we can go over it again at the end of the show. So I have two videos set up here, and because I just talked about the New Jersey events that have been going on with basically these drones, over the past month, they seem to be kind of chasing around these plasmoids, and it's being talked about in the news, it's being talked about everywhere, and obviously the plasma phenomena is not new. I was about to get into earlier with this book. Not only does it get into what plasma is and the whole science behind it, but it also gets into the ancient folklore on it, because this is something that's always been around. I mean, plasma was around before we were. It's basically, the beginnings of life, basically, the beginnings of the universe. What's interesting about plasma is it's been around far, far longer than anything else in the universe. Like some of these plasmoids that we're experiencing out here could be billions of years old. And I'm going to get into also later that they actually have the potential to hold memory. So getting back to my point here, like basically, there's a lot of these ancient legends from around the world before the UFO phenomena really kind of started with the whole flying saucer aspects of UFOs. There were these tales in places like England where people would get lost and they would end up in these fairy circles, they would call them, quote unquote, and they would basically kind of enter this other realm and have missing time, and they would say that they would be dancing with fairies, quote unquote, for hours, or they thought it would be like maybe an hour or something, and then they'd come back and they had like a crazy amount of missing time, like years or months or weeks. So, this phenomenon with the missing time and abductions isn't new. And what's interesting about it is as we've come into this sort of mechanical age, this industrial age, it seems like the phenomena of these abductions and these missing time episodes have kind of evolved to, oh, now people are getting abducted by these mechanical industrial craft and not, just these kind of balls of light that people are seeing, and these like missing time experiences like have always been reported throughout history. Now it's like, oh, well, maybe they see some bright lights and then they end up on a ship and they're, abducted. So, it's really interesting that, to me, what I really like about this book is that Andrew kind of goes into this sort of aspect of the UFO phenomenon, the UFO community, where he basically calls out the fact that maybe these flying saucers that people are like, this whole idea of the flying saucers was actually something that was kind of created, in this industrial age, where like really the UFO phenomenon that people have been experiencing for years, it's still the same thing, but we're kind of putting our minds to, oh, it's a ship now, when before, back in ancient mythological folklore, people weren't seeing ships, but they're having the same kind of experiences, which kind of goes into the perception of why we're experiencing are we actually perceiving things differently in different eras. And is there like our connection with viewing these plasma when we have these experiences with them? Are we kind of perceiving it in a certain way that our mind is allowing us to perceive it? So, the author of this book, he kind of argues, and it's a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Not contradictory, but I can't think of the word I'm looking for. But basically, he just kind of like really calls out a lot of these people in the UFO scene, because it's like, okay, well, maybe it's not nuts and bolts mechanical craft that is the main aspect of the UFO phenomena, you know, like maybe it actually is more based on something far more mysterious and not something that, you know, just flew here from another planet. You know, which I know like would make a lot of people upset maybe. And obviously we are seeing, you know, triangular craft and these different kinds of crafts that are most likely a lot of the times from our government. So I'm going to get into that. But anyway, I'm going to start with just a couple videos to give you an idea of what we're talking about here. So the first one I'm going to show you is a little clip from Third Phase of Moon where they shared a part of basically a viewing that was an experience. I'm sorry, an experience that was that took place in New Jersey that someone filmed. Oops, one second here. Okay, so here you can see basically this
No one seems to know this, but
no.
Amazon actually has a 50.
Okay. Crap. Okay, I'm sorry, an ad started playing, so I can't play the rest of that. I need to get these ads removed so I can play these videos. But basically in this video that was captured in New Jersey, these people were, and I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen it, but there was this thing that happened where this ball of light, this plasmoid, was in the sky, and someone started shining a laser at it, and all of a sudden the plasmoid started reflecting the light back towards the person. So definitely very interesting. And you know, this is something that the plasmas do. They actually do kind of shoot out beams of light. This is something that has been scientifically proven. Not only do they take forms of balls of light, but they actually can take other kinds of forms as well. They can be a fog. They can be like a mist. They can shoot out beams of light. This is all proven. So the other video I want to show you, and hopefully an ad's not going to play. I might just turn the sound off and let me see here. So this was shot by James Gilliland at the East City Ranch, and this video is amazing. Now I'm just going to turn the sound down just in case that happens again. Let me see here. Okay. So as you can see, oh, let me change the quality here. Let me see here. That's not very good quality. Do I do that? Okay. I'm not seeing where I can change the quality here, but as you can see, there's multiple balls of plasma that are going across the sky here. Okay. Okay, I think you can see that a little better now. But so he's pointing the light at it, a laser at it, and as you can see, there's one here, there's one here, there's one powering up here, there's one here. So I'm just gonna let this roll for a second here and let you watch what's going on.
Are there?
There's a line of them. They're all powering up. They're all powering up.
Shoot.
They're taking turns, but each one are. Whoa. Yeah.
I don't know which one to film.
There's a whole, my lord. I got the majority of them.
Are they spinning?
Right here. Powering up right here.
Okay, I got this one.
Oh! Oh, dude. Dude, there's a whole fleet. It's a
My
whole...
God, they're all...
Oh
You know
my
what? That's
God.
not Starlink. Look, they're all...
They're all powering
Another
up.
one's coming down.
Oh! Oh, my lord.
That's a freaking fleet.
Holy cow.
Look at all of them. That's not Starlink.
That's definitely not
Look,
Starlink.
another one coming down from the top.
Oh my God, dude. Dude, this is...
Dude, this is a fleet.
What?
Look at all those.
Holy cow.
And they're not in a straight row.
Yeah, they're like side by side. They're not in straight line at all.
No.
They're powering up.
Oh, look at that. That one powered up.
They're powering up. All of them. What?
Oh, I'm getting pulse. My whole left side's pulsing.
Yeah.
And they're going, look, they're going down, they're going up.
Oh my God, look.
This one's going up.
Side by side.
There's two side by side. Oh my God, this is like, whoa.
You called it.
There's two there.
Oh my lord.
My God, they're two. What the heck? There are so many. I don't know which one to film.
I'm watching every single one of them. Every single one of them has power.
That one, yeah, that one just powered up. There's two. Look at that. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
There was
8,
like
11, 12. Wow. They're just.
Holy cow.
They're still coming.
Holy cow.
And they're going every direction. They're not.
What?
They're not in a.
Okay, so that was really something to see, wasn't it? What was really amazing about James Gilliland's ranch is, and it's actually mentioned in this book I just read, that basically that's like one of the most kind of alive sites for where a lot of viewings or a lot of sightings of this plasma kind of happens around the world. It's one of the best places to see it, and that is his ECETI ranch in Mount Adams in Washington. And this wasn't just recently, but actually for thousands of years or more, Native Americans were seeing it in the area, even before James got his ranch. Local rangers were sighting them, and so this is just one of these major hotspots where this happens. And, that's probably for a lot of reasons, which would include the volcanoes being nearby. And there's kind of volcanic mountains nearby. And then there's also, obviously fault lines going through most of the West Coast. And, that's not near Washington, but, there's a lot of these sites where there's a lot of plasma activity. Another place would be the Marfa lights, and I think that's somewhere in Arizona. And then, so there's like a lot of these kind of places where they're just very active with this phenomenon. So what do I want to get to next here? Okay, so I just want to read like a few passages from this book, just to kind of get the discussion a little started here, because it really blew my mind. So I highly suggest you pick it up. Okay, so first I want to get into the space critter theory. And so what I'm about to read here is that basically plasma is alive. It's sentient. This has been proven. And, there's a lot more to it that scientists haven't really, they've only just touched on and haven't really begun to even discover yet. So I want to read a passage here real quick so that you can kind of see what I'm saying here. So one of the most popular UFO theories of all time was actually proposed by Kenneth Arnold himself and can be cited in the now declassified 1949 government Project Sign UFO report. Naturalist Ivan T. Sanderson and writer Vincent Gaddis were also proponents of this idea, but the major author associated with this seemingly bizarre idea is Trevor James Constable. It goes by several variant names, but it is best known as the space animal or space critter theory. Kenneth Arnold wrote that UFOs are groups and masses of living organisms that are as much a part of our atmosphere and space as the life that we find in our oceans. So I'm just going to read that again. That basically these UFOs or plasmas are groups and masses of living organisms that are as much a part of our atmosphere and space as the life that we find in the oceans. Sanderson wrote that it was the most probable explanation of UFOs. Constable, however, gave the most detailed explanation, writing that they are amoeba-like life forms existing in a plasma state. They're not solid, liquid, or gas. Rather, they exist in a fourth state of matter, which is plasma, as living heat substance. He went on to relate that they are in the infrared portion of the electromagnetic spectrum and thus typically invisible. And so this is a really mind-blowing concept here. And I mean, basically, this is proven. This is true. There's plasma up in our atmosphere everywhere. And you can only see it if it's lit up. So, like, basically, the way that they're able to light up is they kind of start ionizing, and then some different kinds of dust particles or whatever can go into it, and it can ionize and use these. I'm not sure if I explained this totally correct. I'm going to read more to kind of give you a better idea of this later. But basically, whatever dust or whatever can like mix into it can cause the electric energy to kind of ignite and light up. So they like ionize and they just start lighting up. And so, but that doesn't mean that they're not there if you don't see them. Like it's there around us all the time. And I actually want to look up something real quick. I didn't think to pull this up. So one second here. But so basically there was this article that came out earlier this year about the plasma over the pyramids in Egypt. So this actually is a perfect representation of what I was just saying here. Okay. I'll pull up this article here. So this was by Popular Mechanics. And it came out. When did this come out? Oh, September 11th, day after my birthday. Okay, so Mysteria plasma bubbles have appeared over the pyramids. So this was this last September. An announcement from China's Institute of Geology and Geophysics, the country's low-altitude long-range ionosphere radar detected plasma bubbles above the Midway Islands and Egypt's Great Pyramids. This isn't an alien encounter, or maybe it is, but rather the detection of equatorial plasma bubbles that can occur in the Earth's ionosphere. This technology will help supplement other data supplied by NASA's global scale observations of the Lemon Disk mission. Okay, so basically, so for the first time, China's powerful low-altitude long-range ionosphere radar located on Henan Island has detected plasma bubbles above the Midway Islands and perhaps most ominously, the pyramids of Egypt. Okay, so instead, these well-known space weather anomalies are called equatorial plasma bubbles, and they occur in the region of Earth's ionosphere, or Earth's atmosphere known as the ionosphere. Here, the sun's UV light knocks electrons loose from atoms, forming a diffuse layer of ions extending from 50 to 400 miles above the surface. However, sometimes pockets of density and irregularities form in the ionosphere and lead to a depletion of ions that can significantly impact radio and satellite communication. And so I'm just showing you the evidence that, yes, there was plasma detected over the pyramid. And, obviously, when they're writing this article here, they're not really getting into how crazy plasma is or, these other aspects that I'm going to be getting into later. They're just saying, like, oh, there's plasma there, there's plasma everywhere. But what is plasma? That's what they're not getting into and what's so crazy about it. So let me just move on, and I'm just going to answer my question that I just kind of asked you, which is, what is plasma? So let me just find the right page here. Okay. Okay, so plasma has been called the fourth state of matter, the other three, of course, being solids, liquids, and gases in classical philosophy and medieval science. Plasma, a Greek word meaning things that move, were most probably expressed in the element of fire, with the three remaining states of matter being in order: earth, water, and air. Yet plasma can also be seen as the so-called fifth element. The Greek ether, known as quintessence. Let me say that again. Quintessence. This was considered to fill the universe beyond the terrestrial sphere and exist as a form of pure energy or celestial light, which, like lightning, penetrated matter, bringing forth animation and manifestation. No better way could be used to describe plasma, for, as we shall see, it might well be important to understanding the very essence of life itself. Not just carbon-based life, but other forms of life as well. Plasma, in the form of energetic light emissions caused by highly excited seas of electrons, is found in everything from plasma TVs and fluorescent lights to lightning bolts in the aurora borealis or northern lights, and even the light of the sun, which is essentially a great ball of plasma, celestial fire, in its most obvious form. Out in space, almost everything is plasma: the cores of the stars, the debris from nebulae, star fields, and all the cosmic material sucked into black holes. Beyond is the fact that a substance called quark gluon plasma was one of the first things created after the Big Bang, even before the existence of physical matter, which takes up just a tiny percentage of the universe. Some science writers have even moved to suggest that invisible forms of plasma are behind dark matter and dark energy, which might well fill the void of space. Out in the universe, it seems plasma is not the fourth state of matter at all, but the primary state of virtually all energy and information. Energy and information. I'm just going to say that again because that's really interesting. Okay. Let me just get to this next part here. Okay, so basically what's really amazing about this, and what really seems to come up a lot in a lot of these accounts of people viewing plasma, and I can say this for myself because I've experienced this myself, is that plasma really seems, and I'm going to read to you later how this has been proven by science, but it very much seems to be sentient. It often interacts with the viewer, and usually when people see plasma, it will kind of almost come up to them, almost play with them, like fly around them, and then it might actually kind of start leading it somewhere. And so there's so many tales from around the world of plasma throughout time, of a ball of light coming down to people and just kind of stopping there and then starting to kind of like lead them in a different direction. Like sometimes people have been lost and were actually led out of forests in the darkness, lost, and were able to basically come to salvation after being lost for hours because a ball of plasma came to them. Was most interesting, and like I mentioned earlier, is that a lot of times when these episodes do happen, there can be a missing time kind of thing that happens, which is, obviously what is talked about a lot in UFO abduction scenarios. So, this is just something that is really interesting also, and that I just got in earlier with the whole space critter theory, is that, if plasma is sentient, and if it's basically the beginnings of life, and it's alive. It really seems to be alive. And as I'm going to read in a little bit here, it kind of has a memory to it. Maybe I should just get into what I'm reading next, but just think about this, okay? There's life in our oceans, there's life here on Earth, but is it possible that plasma is very much alive? Well, that is basically proven. Plasma is alive. It very much has been proven to be sentient and possibly hold memory capabilities. And it's known, as I just read in the article earlier about the pyramids, it's known that it exists, everywhere in space, up in the atmosphere, like up above the pyramids. There's a bunch of it that has been, seen over the pyramids, and is not always visible, like, what we experience when they kind of turn on and light up. So this sort of like sentient life is around us at all times. So we're not alone. We're not alone. And there's something really interesting about this. It just gets, the more you read about it, the more you look into this, and the more scientists have studied it, the deeper and deeper the rabbit hole gets. So, okay, so now I'm going to read to you the craziest part of this book that just completely blew my mind open. Okay, and that is the concept, or basically the concept of plasmogenesis. So I'm like, here in the book, I'm reading the chapter on plasmogenesis. I'm not really, this whole chapter here is like, you want to read all of it because it's seriously like completely mind-blowing. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll just like read part of it right now. Maybe I'll read the whole thing. Okay. So, plasmogenesis. Eminent scientists Vadim and Sidovich of the General Physics Institute of the Russian Academy of Science in Moscow, working alongside colleagues from the Max Planck Institute for Extraterrestrial Physics in Garching, Germany, and the University of Sydney, Australia, has determined that under certain conditions, dust microparticles can combine and self-organize into complex heliacal strands very reminiscent of DNA proteins. So basically, they're talking about DNA, the strands, like the DNA double helix strand. So basically, they actually, basically like, and so let me just read that again. So they've determined that under certain conditions, dust microparticles can combine and self-organize into complex heliacal strands very reminiscent of DNA proteins. So basically, this plasma, like what they've seen it do is replicate and form into these strands. In addition to this, Sidovich has found that these elaborate dust mechanisms are able to divide and replicate in order to make copies of themselves. They can also interact with other strands or induce alterations in those strands closest to them, and in doing so, create more complex crystal structures that have the ability to evolve, a process in which the strongest strands survive and the weaker ones perish or break down. This is extremely reminiscent of how biological life forms come to being and sustain themselves. Yet there's one highly significant point about these discoveries, and that is crucial to our understanding of mysterious light phenomena in UFO intelligences. This self-organization of dust microparticles occurs only in a plasma environment. Here, they are dynamically controlled by plasma fluxes and bound by electrostatic charges and magnetic fields to become geometrically stable creatures, a kind of living creature that Sidovich describes as a plasma crystal, possessing memory marks. So basically, he just said that they possess memory marks, like they're capable of memory. These enable their transformation into spherical grain crystals and cylindrical crystals, which evolve into heliacal strings, very much like the double helix structure of the DNA. It is important to point out that microscopic dust is introduced to these plasma experiments so that the scientists can better study what's going on. For even without the dust, seas of free electrons and positive ions are doing exactly the same thing invisibly at all times in these plasma environments. In other words, the rigid crystal and helical structures are formed within the plasma even without the addition of simple dust. So basically, in these experiments with this plasma, they're actually seeing, so they're adding, so basically they're like creating this plasma environment where the plasma can be, and then they're adding dust to be able to see it, because like I said earlier, these plasma balls, they turn on when dust in the atmosphere or whatever kind of gets added to it. If it picks it up, it's able to kind of ionize and turn on. But they're already there. So these scientists, they kind of made an environment that this plasma was in, and it actually started creating DNA. Once they threw the dust into it, they were able to view it and see what it was doing. And it actually started creating these DNA structures, self-replicating, which is plasmogenesis, and then basically evolving and creating more strands. So the staggering results of these experiments has persuaded Sidovich to predict the possible existence of large plasma polycrystals in space, a new state of matter which is unexplored so far. This is an incredibly bold statement with far-reaching implications. I'm just trying to think, like, this chapter is so interesting. It's like I don't want to stop reading this. I mean, it's just, this is what I'm saying. You just have to pick this up because I don't know. I could read this whole chapter and it just gets crazier and crazier. So I'm just gonna give you the tip of the iceberg there and let you work with that. So basically, this plasma has been studied and seen to be capable of possessing memory, of being sentient, and capable of evolving and basically splitting off and regenerating or cloning itself. And this is going on all the time. It's everywhere in like every part of the universe. It's been around since the beginning of time. It was the beginning of the universe, basically, or it is the beginning of the universe. And what's even crazier is that, it also mentions this in here, but I'm not going to read this part. But basically, this plasma could have been the reason for life on Earth, because these heliacal structures of plasma, so plasma basically is capable of surviving best in an environment that is very electrically charged, like over a fault line, over volcanoes, these sort of places. And so when Earth first started, obviously there was this thing called the primordial soup. You read that in any science book when you read like, oh, what did it look like at the beginning of Earth? Like, where did life start on Earth? They say that life started in this primordial soup on Earth. And this primordial soup was obviously made by volcanoes going off all around the Earth. There's a lot of earthquakes happening at that time. There's volcanoes going off all around the Earth. And there was this primordial soup, right? And plasma would definitely be able to live in that environment. That would be the best environment for plasma to be in. So, it's very likely that life on Earth probably started from plasma. It started creating itself and evolving in this primordial soup, and kind of started creating itself with amoebas and these different microscopic organisms, and evolved into life as it is now. So, this is really crazy. And I think that, science hasn't really got into how crazy this is yet. I mean, obviously they have, but I think the general public don't really understand how much we don't understand about it yet. I mean, it's just, I know that a lot of space programs, obviously, all these space programs work with plasma, with their technologies to get out to other ends of the universe. this technology is using plasma in technology is extremely important, especially in space travel. So, I mean, it's just mind blowing. So I'm gonna stop rambling. I'm just gonna leave this there and let you digest that information. So thanks for joining me today, and please make sure you check out this book called LightQuest by Andrew Collins. I actually started reading another book on plasma right now because I want to know more. Oh, and before you go, before I get off here, I want to share my Shaman Spears, which are uniquely handcrafted energy channeling devices, which I created myself. They're for the purpose of channeling or amplifying energy. And one thing that's actually interesting about plasma and Shaman Spears is that so plasma is actually found to be alive and become attracted to areas that basically have orgone qualities about them. And orgone is kind of layers of organic and inorganic material with quartz and other materials where it actually can attract plasma. And believe it or not, my Shaman Spears, which I make, are actually filled with orgone materials. I layer the insides of them because they're actually made of bamboo and the insides are hollow. I layer them with orgone type materials, magnets, quartz, all down the insides. So yeah, basically I have all these spears available on my website, which is shamanspears.com. Shamanspears.com. Make sure you check that out. All right, thanks everyone for joining me tonight, and until next time on Apollo's Odyssey, over and out.